So here's part two on how to respond to an EDD audit letter. So the first part we talked about what to write and what information you're going to need. This discussion is going to be more about what you can expect during the EDD audit and some things you can do from the beginning that's going to help that. So when you respond to the EDD pre-audit questionnaire, they also call it a letter of inquiry. That's going to go to the office. It's listed at the top left on the page one of the letter. Your case, once that information is received, your case is then going to be assigned to an auditor. And the auditor will probably give you a call within 30 days and schedule an appointment with probably 2 or 3 weeks out. So you'll have about a month or two from the initial letter until you're going to have to talk to somebody at the EDD. Now, currently, EDD, their offices are closed. People are working remotely. So you can expect this to be by phone, which makes it a little bit more challenging, especially if you want to meet face-to-face and you're better at describing things when you're meeting in a meeting. So you're going to have to prepare for that meeting. It's going to be a phone meeting. You're going to have your information with you. You're going to want to have a very succinct description of your company. Again, the information you already provided, you want to have that available so you can explain how your company functions, because the EDD doesn't really know how your company functions. And if you're an event planning company and you don't describe, what makes you different from other event planning companies and why your workers are really contractors, they might lump you in with every other company that they have audited in the event planning space. So you really want to distinguish those key points. So once the case has been assigned, the auditor will contact you. They're going to go through a list of questions. And here's the crux of really where you want to focus. EDD will send postcards out to all of your 1099 contractors. And they get that list from IRS of all the 1099s you filed. They're going to send postcards out and potentially have talked to those people before your initial audit meeting with the auditor. So anticipate that. You might consider hiring an attorney and having the attorney speak to your workers. Now, of course, you don't want to tell the workers what to say, but what you do want to know is what kind of responses are they going to have to EDD, because maybe they're really not understanding, or maybe some of your workers may not understand that they might, as a contractor, they have their own, their own business, they're self-employed. A lot of people really don't understand that as a distinction. They're going to think, well, I'm a worker, but am I really a business owner? Do I have my own client base aside from the work that I do for you? The worker might think, well, do I really have my own client base? Do I set my own prices? There's a lot of questions that come into that. But you might want to ask your contractors some of the basic questions, if they consider themselves to be a business owner, or at least hire an attorney who can go through that list of questions and then formulate, or structure the case, the defense for the case. The other thing to really prepare for is going through your general ledger. Make sure you've identified all your contractors. And if you're going to provide your general ledger to EDD, make sure you have filed your 1099s for every single worker who you provided services to. You're not required to give a 1099 to a corporation, right? So it would be an LLC or an individual or a partnership, but not a corporation. Those entities do not require a 1099. Aside from that, you're going to want to make, when you go through that list of contractors, you're going to want to prepare not only the scope of work as we talked in part one, understand what they did for you in a very simple one sentence description, but also find out, which of your contractors have EIN numbers, right? The employer identification number. Which one of them have business licenses? And EDD really does focus on that. So remember, the law changed in January 1st, 2020 with AB5. Before it was the old 13-factor test, which have now been compressed into 3 elements. And you have to meet all 3. And a lot of times what we're learning now that AB5 is in full force and effect, is EDD is analyzing workers under 2 different standards. And in some cases, when we communicate with EDD, they're telling us, well, this one worker qualified as a contractor on the old law, but the new rule, they don't. And some of the things they're focusing on is the 3rd element of the ABC test. Does the worker have an independent trade or business? And what does that really mean? Do they have a business? Have they invested the money, the assets, the equipment, whatever they're needing to do their business? Have they done that? Do they have any skin in the game? Do they get an EIN number? Do they have an entity such as a corporation, an LLC, or some type of partnership? Do they have a business license? And a lot of times, unfortunately, EDD is focusing on that business license. And if they don't have a business license, they potentially could get rejected, even though they might have other clients, and we're not looking at large corporations. These questions generally come up if you hire a worker who doesn't have a physical office, doesn't have other workers working for them. They work out of their home, could be a marketing person, could be a bookkeeper, somebody remote, a remote worker, which is very common right now. You may really not know what the dynamics of each of your workers, what they look like. Do they have a website? Do they have a Yelp page? Do they have client testimonials? So do some of the research, and it takes a little bit of time, but go through your workers and kind of get a profile. And when we submit a response to EDD, we already have a profile for each of those workers. We can tell, you know what, we think we have legitimate contractors. Because if I didn't have that information, or if I didn't believe that the workers were contractors and they're really more employees, it might not be an issue you want to fight. You want to know that ahead of time. That might change the dynamics of the audit and how you approach the audit and what you give to the auditor. So just consider that. And one very important part, if you are in the construction field and you are, for instance, a general contractor and you're hiring other people who are required to have a license, if any of your contractors do not have a license, keep in mind that they must be converted to an employee, because the state of California will never allow a company to hire an unlicensed worker who does what is required to be have a licensed work. They're going to convert them into employees. So these are very important facts. There's potentially some ways to get around that. It depends. Maybe part of their work didn't involve licensed work. Maybe they were doing some office work related to contracting permits. Maybe submitting permits to the city for certain projects. That may not require a license, but doing work on the job site, it's pretty sure you're going to need a license. Anything that touches the property or the project.